Yo, 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 welcome back. Welcome back. My. So here we are, y'all. Ninth fireside chat. So last fireside, if y'all recall, I explained the many reasons as to why you just shouldn't be debating on Facebook. And you know what? I've been pretty good, you know? All right, so I caught myself in a couple, but I haven't been going as much, in overboard like I normally do. It's a process. It's a process. But anyways, aside from that, let's talk. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was this consumer report that I read, and it was basically showing the consumer spending for the first quarter during the pandemic, and it particularly used a certain segment of time, March 1st to April 11th, and it wanted to just kind of track and see how households were having to, budget and what was really going on within their spending habits, and it found that at least 40% of all credit card spending was down, and that was just average across the board. It's crazy, but what it also found is that 50% of all spending on non-essential items was down, and that also accounted for all of the decline of spending. So that was very interesting. But there was a 20% rise on essential products, which makes sense. More people need to get things that they probably weren't thinking about. More toilet paper now, more water here, bread, things like that. So that was interesting. But it showed that the top earners reduced their spending by about 46%, and that saved them about $400. But lower income earners were able to reduce by 38%, but only save about $150. And they're saying that the reason that obviously the disparity is between salaries and stuff like that, but also lower income workers need to spend more of their income on essential items, so they're not able to cut as much because they're not spending as much on non-essentials as much as the top earners would be spending. So it was easier for the top earners to cut some of their spending because it was on things that wouldn't have been able to be open anyways. And that was also a little bit of the gist of what the article was pointing at, was that it wasn't necessarily people out of work. It was more so the stay-at-home orders. So I just thought it was a very interesting article. Kind of see how people are spending, stuff like that. But I know what y'all want to hear me talk about, so let's go ahead and talk about it. Look, man, Kemp is still a simp, y'all. Damn it, that man is just like ridiculously incompetent. I just don't get it. I really don't. So yesterday I was gonna talk about it. I was gonna do a whole segment of Kemp is still a simp, which he is. I just said that. But the thing is, like, right when I was about to do it, I was like, all right, cool, let's go ahead and talk about this. This motherfucker decides to do some more stupid shit. And I'm just like, why? So first, let's talk about the bumbling, stumbling, and fumbling of the data for the coronavirus, and then we'll talk about the cancellation of the elections for the Supreme Court Justice. All right. So first, this bumbling. It can't be anything other than intentionally attempting to mislead people. Like there's no other way around it. The way that this thing was set up, like the x-axis had dates that weren't chronological, so they were out of order, and then it also didn't have the counties represented in the same position each time. It would have like April 28th, and then it would go like to the 27th, and then it would go to the 29th, and it would try to show a decline. And this is the type of data that they were using when they were trying to gauge what would be the best way to do a reopening plan. So I'm sitting here like, you're using misinterpreted data to tell your constituents it's safe to go out, even though you know that there's no way that this data could be read properly. So there's there's no other way to say this other than he is criminally and damn near deadly negligent. Like, if people continue to die in Georgia due to the way that this man has handled this, then that's on his hands. Like, there's no way that we can get around this. You literally lied to us. And then once, what was it, Representative Scott Holcomb, he was like, yo, this is some cuckoo. You know what I'm saying? Like, literally used the word cuckoo and then sent a letter to you. You're like, all right, cool. We got to, give y'all the real information. Like, why is it that Georgia consistently thinks they can just keep hiding stuff until, like, it becomes national, and then you got to show us? Like, the Ahmed Arbery case. It's like, the shit happened, and then you don't want to say nothing. And then once the media and the nation starts like, yo, you gonna do something? It's like, yeah, we're gonna do something. And then you act like it was like a quick response. So, look, there's people who are relying on your guidance to give them the right type of guidelines so that they can open up the stores that they need to open up, so they can open up the businesses that they need to open up. And the way that you're handling this is showing that you're not doing this in the best interest of the people, but in the best interest of who? Like, what? Who does it benefit for you to just send people out here without any way of knowing if it's close to safe? Like, I just don't understand why you believe that this was the best way to attempt to reopen the state by using faulty data. Whatever. So the second thing, and I guess what kind of prevented me from doing the piece that I just kind of talked about earlier, I was going to do a lot longer. I just, it doesn't make sense. So whatever. But the second piece is about the cancellation of the Supreme Court justices. So Georgia Supreme Court justice runoff, there's going to be an election. It was going to be held on Tuesday. And basically, shit got canceled. Yeah. It got canceled because of a loophole, basically. So Justice Blackwell is going to retire. Resign. He put a formal resignation or retirement, whichever one, really doesn't even matter at this point. But he put it in to be dated, I believe, November of 2020, which means it wouldn't have ended before his tenure would have ended at the end of December, meaning that there can be somebody appointed by the governor if there isn't an election. So Brian Kemp decided, him and his old buddy, I don't even know how to say the dude's name, like Raffensperger or whatever, who's now the Secretary of Treasury for Georgia, that was the former position of Brian Kemp. Y'all remember when he was in charge of the election council, found a way to steal it. So basically, him and Raffensperger decided that they were going to cancel the election so they could put whichever Republican nominee that they wanted there. So there were two people who were running. There was a representative, I believe, John Barrow, and then there was a Republican, Beth Beskins. Both of them attempted to sue, or at least bring a lawsuit about the situation. Like, like, we need to have this election because this seems unfair. And there was about, I believe, 6 of the Supreme Court justices for Georgia recused themselves, but 3 stayed on. And I think it was very, very admirable and honorable for the ones that did recuse themselves, because it's a conflict of interest. Like, you're choosing if there should be an election to have the next person be on this, court with you, especially when somebody who is already resigning, you know what I'm saying, it's going to be their seat, so they shouldn't even be able. So it's a good thing he recused himself, I believe. It's just stupid because the court ended up going 6-2, so they lost it. And now we don't really know who's going to be chosen, but somebody that Kemp decides. And, like, we've seen who Kemp appoints. When Isaacson left the senator position, what happened? He appoints Kelly Loeffler. Why? I have no fucking idea. But apparently, he doesn't either. So it's like, you don't even call her out either. Can we please have an investigation into Perdue and Loeffler? Like, we got to. It makes no sense to me that we know for a fact that there's insider trading. Like, it has to be. It's unequivocal. It doesn't even make sense to me that you could look at this case and be like, nah, ain't no foul play. Like, Shawty got the briefing, told everybody it's cool. It's cool. Don't worry about it. We're good. I'm glad of the response that we got, this, that, and the other. And then next thing you know, Shotty over here dropping stocks, picking up these stocks over here in telecoms and telecommuting jobs and stuff like that. Her portfolio only is handled by a financial advisor and she has no idea what happens and it just happens under, no, I mean, stop that bullshit. Investigate it, but you won't do that. Why? Because you're corrupt and you suck. And there is no reason you are still in the governor's mansion. My G, look, what it is, it's time for you to go. Now, what does that mean? That means you need to be removed from office. So we are recalling the governorship of Brian Kemp. There is a petition that is already circulating. I have put it in the description. I myself have signed it, and I need you guys to sign it. We need this to happen. I don't know who is going to replace him. And real quick, before I continue with that, this is not me saying that Stacey Abrams would have done a top-notch, top-tier job. Not at all. But I'm also not saying what this Washington Post report was saying, that she's the, what is it? The Sarah Palin of the Democrats. Like, that's going too far. And then you say Sarah Palin's a better nominee or candidate than her because Sarah Palin won the governorship of Alaska, as if running in Alaska versus running in Georgia as a female is even comparable. But what the fuck ever. So it was just like ignorant. Like, it didn't really talk too much about Stacey and like what she talks about or the foreign policy that she feels like she's well versed in. It did talk about, you know, her bringing voters and stuff, but it really just seemed, I don't know, it seemed like to be a hit piece. I don't know who this person that was writing it intends or wants, but obviously they want somebody probably like a Klobuchar, or Gretchen, whoever her name is, the Democratic governor of Michigan. So I don't know. It's not saying that Stacey would have been better. What it's saying is you can't do any worse. There's no way you can do worse than this dude. And now he gets to appoint whoever he wants. And this person isn't going to leave after this year. No, this person gets to stay till 2022. So it's like, hold up. You're attempting to influence judicial positions so you can swing the courts to the right. And it's not just in Georgia. DeSantis has been doing it in Florida. They've been doing it in Arizona. There's a couple states that are doing. There's something called like the Federalist Society. I haven't looked too much into it, but apparently it's like a right wing organization. It works with law, and they got justices apparently, and they just been infiltrating certain courts and certain high courts in certain states. And I think that is something that really needs to be checked into, because this right here, this isn't even politics anymore. I guess this is politics. I mean, I guess politics has always been a game of power, but like this right here, it's just blatant corruption. Like, this is organized crime. Y'all are no different than the fucking mob or the mafia. Like, it's ridiculous, man. So yes, forever, Kemp will remain a simp. Y'all need to get the shirt. Y'all need to get the hats. We gonna have it all. Like, Kemp is a simp. Hashtag Kemp is a simp. Do not ever forget that this man Kemp is a simp, and he will always be that. Okay? And I hope he's watching, because he needs to know. Like, you know that you were simp, but I need you to know that I know that you know that I know that you know you a simp. You dig it? So look, let's move on to what I've been jamming. And so I got a homegirl, a very close friend of mine named Ashley. She's always sending me dope ass music and stuff like that, and she wanted me to listen to this artist out of Atlanta I had never heard before by the name of Deante Hitchcock. And I was like, all right, cool, let me check it out. So I checked out his album Better. I was impressed. I was impressed by his writing. I was like, yo, this cat deep. Okay, there's this song called Growing Up, Mother God, where he's having this like in-depth conversation with God, but you know, it's like a female. I mean, I know a couple other people have done that. I think Absol's talked about that and stuff like that. But just the way the questioning and the way that he talked to her and the way that she responded, it was really dope. But what I did notice is there is a heavy J. Cole influence, that to the point where half the time I was listening to it, it sounded like a Cole from Atlanta. slightly Ti-ish. But I don't know, it just caught my eye. But very, very, very well put together album. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I definitely recommend it. Shouts out to Ashley for showing that one to me. Yeah, ain't really been listening to too much new stuff lately. I feel like when Friday drops, there's gonna be some new releases that I want to check out. But other than that, man, I just been, me, man, staying on my old playlist, man. Either that '90s hip hop or that '90s R&B or some lo-fi hip hop, bro. That's about it, man. I just be chilling. I be in my zone, shit like that. But what I'm watching. So Netflix finally decided to throw the last 10 episodes of I'm gonna say Madam President, Madam Secretary onto the platform. And I'm glad. I'm glad I finally got some closure. I'm just kind of upset that it ended in the way that it did. I feel a little unfulfilled, a little unsatisfied. It just doesn't feel right. But yeah, man. So what happens though after season 5 was necessary to have a season 6, and I do like certain parts of it. It seemed like there was a whole bunch more of I don't think I said that properly. A whole lot more of women empowerment. It focused a lot more on that, which obviously makes sense. But like I said, this show is really, really cool to me. At first, I thought that it was supposed to be a fictionalized version of what Hillary Clinton is, and I was like, man, that's some bullshit. Ain't no one trying to see that shit. But then I realized, like, no. She's actually kind of dope. She's cool. Taya Leone, or however you say her name. Sorry if I butchered it. She did a thing in here. I really, really enjoyed watching this. I like the family. The husband, religious scholar, very interesting in the way that he speaks. He's always quoting scripture, but he's obviously a renowned intellectual. The family, they got a crazy dynamic. It's cool. I like that show a lot. But yeah, Last Dance. I know y'all finally, caught up, finished it. Last episode's finally played. Y'all, I get it now. I get why Jordan during his what's it called? His Hall of Fame speech called out Brian Russell again. Like at first we all thought he was just being a dick, which he was. But we thought he was just being a dick for no reason. Like, man, you embarrassed that man with that pose in the shot. But so you've been holding on to this thing forever. You thought in your mind that this man disrespected you and you've been holding that chip for that long. And it's just funny because like the greatest player in the world consistently needs to find more and more ways to push himself to be the greatest. And that is what makes you the greatest. When you find more and more and more ways to push yourself to be greater than A, that you were, and B, that you ever thought you were. Pushing your potential, pushing past your limitations, that is pure greatness. So whether y'all want to say it's Jordan or LeBron or Kareem or Bird or Magic or Wilt, doesn't even matter. You know what matters is that they're all great. They were all great. They were all forms of greatness. And that is what we should all aspire to. Not to be the greatest basketball player, not to be the greatest, football star, none of like that, but to be the greatest versions of ourselves. Like Maslow called it, self-actualized, becoming the best you. So that's what we all need to work on. Definitely need to work on it for myself. And that's what I intend to work on. So that's what I'll be doing until the next time y'all see me. But until then, y'all be good, and y'all be great. It's Jokester.